Moving forward, we hope that the United States of America would consider more EDCA projects, which of course will be coursed appropriately through the Mutual Defense Board, Security Engagement Board, or the MDB is SEB.
Our alliance is based on our mutual defense treaty and our respective nations' shared commitment to peace and security in the Indo-Pacific. If the mutual defense treaty is the why, then EDCA is the how.
65 kilometers northwest of Manila, bulldozers are clearing ground at a Philippine air base most people have never heard of. There is no press conference, no grand announcement, just satellite cameras quietly recording a new runway apron taking shape, hangars rising for unmanned aircraft, and a command center built to process what those aircraft see. Commercial satellite imagery reviewed by USNI News confirms a clearing at the northwest end of Basa Air Base that matches construction plans filed by the Pentagon. The project was approved by a joint U.S.-Philippine military board, and it tells us something important. In the struggle for power in the South China Sea, the most consequential battles are often fought not with missiles, but with concrete, cameras, and runways. This is the story of Basa Air Base. It is a story about geography, fear, and the slow, deliberate construction of American power along the edge of China's coastline. And like all great stories in international politics, it begins with a simple truth that the realist thinkers Robert D. Kaplan and John Mearsheimer have long insisted upon. In a world without a global policeman, nations protect themselves by controlling territory, watching their rivals, and building strength before a crisis arrives, not after the crisis. Basa Air Base is the home of the Philippine Air Force's 5th Fighter Wing and its FA-50 jets, the most capable fighters Manila currently owns. On a map, that alone would make it a modest regional airfield. But maps in geopolitics are never just about distance. They are about what lies on every side. To the west of Basa sits the South China Sea. To the northwest lies Scarborough Shoal, one of the most contested patches of water on Earth. Further out are the Spratly Islands. To the north, across open water, sits Taiwan, the single most dangerous flashpoint in US-China relations. Basa sits at the center of all of it, close enough to reach these hotspots quickly, yet safely on Philippine soil. This is not a new idea. During the Cold War, Washington ran much of its Pacific power through Clark Air Base and Subic Bay, two facilities that supported American operations from World War II through Vietnam. When US forces withdrew from the Philippines in the early 1990s, that forward presence disappeared. For nearly 2 decades, it was barely missed. Then China started pressing harder. In December 2024, the United States, Japan, and the Philippines ran joint patrols near Scarborough Shoal after Chinese Coast Guard ships harassed Philippine vessels there. Washington also launched Task Force Ayungin, an effort to sharpen maritime surveillance around Second Thomas Shoal. Quietly, Basa stopped being just a fighter base. It became a node in a widening web of American surveillance and alliance building stretching across what strategists call the First Island Chain. To understand why bulldozers are now moving dirt at Basa, you have to understand what has been happening offshore for the past 14 years. The modern dispute ignited in 2012 when Chinese and Philippine ships faced off at Scarborough Shoal, roughly 220 kilometers from Luzon. China never left. Filipino fishermen have reported being blocked and harassed ever since. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled that China's actions were unlawful and that the shoal remained an open fishing ground. Beijing rejected the ruling outright and changed nothing on the water. If Scarborough Shoal lit the fuse, Second Thomas Shoal became the place where it nearly exploded. There, the rusting hull of the BRP Sierra Madre, a Philippine ship deliberately run aground in 1999, still holds a small detachment of Marines. Chinese Coast Guard vessels have repeatedly blocked Philippine resupply missions to that crew. In March 2024, Chinese ships fired water cannons at Philippine boats, injuring sailors and damaging hulls, while Philippine vessels found themselves surrounded by Coast Guard ships, Navy vessels, and so-called maritime militia. That militia is the heart of what analysts call China's gray zone strategy. using boats that look civilian but act on Beijing's instructions, applying pressure just below the threshold of war. The Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative tracked an average of roughly 195 of these militia vessels swarming key South China Sea features on any given day in 2023. And reporting from 2025 and 2026 found those numbers climbing even higher. For the Philippines, this created an impossible dilemma. Respond too softly, and China's presence grows. Respond too aggressively, and the risk of war grows with it. Manila's answer was not more firepower. It was better eyesight. Before any commander can act wisely, they first need to know exactly who is out there, how many ships, and what they are doing. That single need, more than any other, explains everything now under construction at Basa. In 2014, Washington and Manila signed the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, known as EDCA. It solved an old political problem. The Philippines did not want permanent American bases again, but it desperately wanted American help. EDCA threaded that needle. U.S. forces could rotate through Philippine-owned bases, pre-position equipment, and fund construction, all while the bases stayed under full Philippine control. In 2016, both sides picked 5 EDCA sites, including Basa. Under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the deal expanded fast. In February 2023, 4 more sites were added, several of them in northern Luzon, facing Taiwan, bringing the total to 9 across the archipelago. Money followed quickly. Of the roughly $82 million the Pentagon put into the first round of EDCA projects, about $66 million went to Basa alone. More than any other site, covering a humanitarian aid warehouse, a renovated runway, and command facilities. In 2024, Washington committed another $128 million across 36 additional EDCA projects. And by mid-2026, officials announced a fresh wave of funding spanning 7 of the 9 sites, on top of a $500 million package to modernize the Philippine military itself. A decade after it was signed, EDCA has quietly become one of the load-bearing walls of the U.S.-Philippine alliance. And nowhere is that more visible than at Basa.
U.S.-Philippines Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement deepens the defense cooperation between our two great nations. It develops individual and collective defense capacities and provides opportunities for training and exercise.
The centerpiece of the current work is a new aircraft parking apron. According to a contract awarded to Acciona CMS Philippines LLC, the roughly $32 to $33 million project covers about 625,000 square feet and will hold up to 20 aircraft, 18 fighters, and 2 large transport planes, complete with drainage, fire suppression, and a new taxiway. The funding traces back to the Pentagon's Pacific Deterrence Initiative, the program Congress created in 2021 specifically to keep America's military edge over China in the Indo-Pacific. The project is scheduled to be finished by mid-2026. Next to the new apron, planning documents call for hangars built specifically for unmanned aircraft, alongside a tactical operations center designed to process radar feeds, satellite images, and drone footage in real time. Think of it this way: the drones are the eyes, and the operations center is the brain that makes sense of what they see. This is not theoretical. In 2024, Marine Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Squadron 1 began flying MQ-9 Reaper drones out of Basa. A Marine Corps spokesperson confirming the deployment was meant to support intelligence sharing with the Philippines. 2 years later, in April 2026, official photographs during Balikatan 2026 showed Marine drone crews still forward deployed at the base, their shipping containers visible behind the alert hangars in satellite images. Add it together, and a pattern appears: a 625,000 square foot apron, drone hangars, a tactical operations center, runway upgrades already finished. This is not a base being prepared for an occasional visit. It is a base being built for a long stay. In modern great power competition, the side that sees first usually moves first, and the side that moves first usually wins. That is the entire logic behind the MQ-9 Reaper's presence at Basa. The Reaper can stay airborne for more than 27 hours, flying above 50,000 feet while its sensors sweep enormous stretches of ocean. From Basa, that reach covers Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, Reed Bank, the Spratly Islands, and the shipping lanes that carry an estimated $3 trillion in trade every year. The value becomes obvious during a crisis. When Philippine resupply boats approach the grounded BRP Sierra Madre, Chinese ships often appear to block them. A decade ago, those confrontations played out almost entirely out of public view. Today, drone footage, satellite passes, and onboard cameras can document a water cannon strike or a dangerous maneuver within hours. And that footage often ends up on the evening news worldwide. Manila has openly used American-provided video and imagery to show the world exactly what Beijing ships are doing in disputed waters. Strip away the technical language, and the strategy is simple. The US and Philippines are not just preparing to react to the next crisis at Scarborough Shoal or Second Thomas Shoal. They are building the ability to watch it unfold from the very first minute.
Peace through strength is a very real thing. Deterrence is necessary around the world, but specifically in this region, in your country, considering the threats from the Communist Chinese, and that friends need to stand shoulder to shoulder to deter conflict.
Looked at piece by piece, the projects at Basa seem almost mundane. A runway, an apron, some hangars, a building full of radios and screens. Looked at together, they form something far more significant. Basa is being converted from a traditional fighter base into a surveillance hub aimed squarely at the South China Sea. Senior American officers have pointed to a hard lesson from the war in Ukraine. Drones, satellites, and instant intelligence sharing can decide outcomes faster than raw firepower ever could. You cannot respond to what you cannot see. That single idea now drives what the Pentagon calls maritime domain awareness, the ability to know, in near real time, exactly what is happening across a vast stretch of ocean. Beijing understands exactly what this means, and that is precisely why it objects so loudly. Much of China's gray zone strategy around Scarborough Shoal depends on ambiguity, on incidents happening where few cameras are watching. Persistent American and Philippine surveillance strips that ambiguity away. Zoom out further, and Basa's true purpose comes into focus. American strategists have long studied what they call the First Island Chain, a line of territory running from Japan through Okinawa and Taiwan, down through the Philippines toward Borneo. Whoever controls access through that chain controls whether Chinese ships and aircraft can move freely into the open Pacific or get bottled up near their own coastline. Within that chain, the Philippines sits in an unusually important spot, wedged between the South China Sea and the Luzon Strait, the narrow waterway separating northern Luzon from Taiwan. Reuters has reported that the Luzon Strait and the nearby Bashi Channel rank among the main routes Chinese naval forces would need to use to break into the wider Pacific, which helps explain why several of the newest EDCA sites sit in northern Luzon rather than near Manila. Basa's role within that wider network was on full display during Cope Thunder 26-1, held from April 6 to 17, 2026, U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptors from Hawaii's 199th Air Expeditionary Squadron flew more than 30 sorties alongside Philippine F-A-50 fighters directly over Basa, part of a combined force of roughly 2,800 American and Filipino personnel. It marked the third time in recent years that Hawaii-based Raptors had deployed to the Philippines, each visit, according to the unit's commander, making the partnership stronger. For a base just a short flight from the Luzon Strait and the South China Sea, hosting one of America's premier stealth fighters was not a routine training footnote. It was a signal, visible to anyone watching, that the alliance is no longer just rehearsing. From Washington's chair, all of this looks like deterrence. From Manila's chair, it looks like self-defense. From Beijing's chair, it looks like encirclement. Chinese officials view the First Island Chain as a wall limiting their access to the open Pacific, and they see every new EDCA project as another brick in that wall. When 4 new sites were added in 2023, China's embassy warned the move would raise tensions. In 2025, its foreign ministry argued that U.S.-Philippine cooperation should not target third parties, a clear, if indirect, reference to China. What worries Beijing most may not be the fighters at all, but the surveillance gear, the drone hangars, the reapers, the intelligence sharing networks that make activity in the South China Sea far harder to hide. That tension boiled over in June 2026, when China imposed sanctions on Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro, banning him and his family from mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau, and barring Chinese citizens and firms from doing business with them. Beijing accused him of repeatedly making remarks that damaged bilateral relations.
我想在这里强调的是，特奥多罗是菲律宾国内一小撮上蹿下跳、反华分子的代表性人物。他这样肆意妄为，必然会自食恶果，损害的是菲律宾整个国家和全体人民的利益。
Manila's foreign ministry called the move a hostile act, while Teodoro himself shrugged it off and said he would keep doing his job. The armed forces of the Philippines publicly backed him, framing the episode as proof that Manila would not be intimidated out of defending its own waters. That same month, the Philippines also removed a floating structure near Scarborough Shoal that officials believed was tied to Chinese research activity, an incident documented almost instantly through satellite imagery and surveillance footage and picked up by media around the world within hours. A decade ago, an incident like that might have stayed invisible for weeks. Today, it cannot. Step back, and Basa Air Base stops looking like a story about concrete and drones. It becomes a story about how nations behave when no referee is watching over them. Robert Kaplan has spent decades arguing that geography is destiny, that mountains, straits, and coastlines shape the choices nations make long before ideology or diplomacy ever enters the picture. John Mearsheimer has argued, just as bluntly, that great powers do not trust promises, they trust their own strength and the strength of their friends. Basa Air Base is both ideas playing out on a single runway. Its location, wedged between the South China Sea and the Luzon Strait, made it valuable the moment tensions rose. And the response to that value was not a speech. It was a 625,000 square foot apron, drone hangars, a tactical operations center, and a rotation of America's most capable aircraft. For Washington, Basa reinforces the first island chain and keeps the alliance credible. For Manila, it offers eyes over its own waters and a stronger hand against pressure it cannot match alone. For Beijing, it is one more sign that the wall around its coastline is being reinforced. Plank by plank, contract by contract. None of this guarantees a war. But it tells us, with total clarity, how the major players expect the next decade in the South China Sea to be fought, not first with missiles, but with runways, satellites, and the simple, decisive power of being able to see your rival before they see you.